I'm just driving down Dalgarth Road, and I'm just going off a little road off the side where there are some Gunn's tree orchids. We'll go for a park. We'll park along here, and then it's a short walk to the location. Quite a nice day. It's a reasonable little bush road, track in. For those that know this location, you can get a conventional vehicle in here. There's a couple of potholes, but if you just take it steady, you should be fine. We're just coming up to the little parking bay. And I'll park in here. And then we'll go for the short walk out to just along that track over there that I'm pointing at. I'm just walking a little bit further along the track, and we should come up to a small creek from memory. It's a bit dry underfoot. It's the 17th of December. You wouldn't believe it, but 2 days ago we had snow on the highlands, and on the, got down to 7 degrees at Devonport where I live. Here's this small creek. Now these creeks used to run a lot more than this, but with the forestry operations, with the close density of the trees, it's restricted the water flow. But there's something of interest over here I thought I'd show you. There are some burrowing crayfish chimneys. You can see them down there. They're closed up at the moment, but they're still active, and that is to preserve any water in there. You can see another one over here underneath these reeds, and these are Ingaeus granulatus, the central north burrowing crayfish. Their numbers are declining due to a variety of reasons, and unfortunately from memory, there are 15 Ingaeus species in Australia, and of those, all but one are all endemic to Tasmania, found nowhere else in the world. Anyway, we'll head up this track a little bit further, and it's not all that far along. We turn off shortly, and it's not all that far up to where the Gunn's tree orchids. Quite a nice day, not as windy as when I was here the other day, which is good. Well, I'm just coming up past some old car bodies that have been dumped here, and I'll turn off. The track goes three ways. We'll take the lower right-hand track up towards the Gunn's tree orchids. Nearly coming up to the spot where I turn off this track and go up the hill to where I know where there's some orchids, Gunn's tree orchids. And I've just noticed a couple of different species of ferns. And look, we have a convenient fern frond so I can point them out. This one here is what they call the man fern. Well, they both call them man ferns, but this one I think is a smooth man fern, and it's Dicksonia antarctica, named after John Dickson, who was a Scottish nurseryman in the 1800s, and he was also a member of the Royal Horticultural Society and also the Linnaean Society. The Linnaean Society was the formal group that set up the scientific naming process for different flora and fauna around the world, and also for fungus as well. James Dickson was actually a guru of ferns, and he wrote 7 volumes of ferns of the world, and it was never fully completed because he didn't travel all over the world. Here we have the slender tree fern, and as you can see, it's quite a lot slender than your man fern here. It's on a diet, and this is known as Cyathea australis. And when these are around in a wet sclerophyll or a rainforest area, these are usually an indicator that we might find some Gunn's tree orchids. But we're going to head up through the scrub in a sec and to the orchids. So I'll head off. You can hear the different birds calling in here in this forest. I noticed I disturbed a brush bronzewing just down the track. That took off. I just heard there we go, he's responding. A grey butcher bird. There's one up over in the distance and one behind me somewhere. I've heard, here they are talking to each other. There's been some shrike thrushes in here as well, and scrub wrens, superb fairy wrens. So it's quite a bit of bird life. We're about to go off track now, up to the Gunn's tree orchids. There's a Cyathea australis, and here's some tape to indicate there may have been orchids in here. Well, I'm just about to come up to the place where there's some Gunn's tree orchids that I know are in flower. There they are. And here we go. Here's some orchids, Gunn's tree orchids. Now, don't know how well you can see that, but I'll try and do a bit better. Well, I've come across the Gunn's tree orchids here, and you might be able to see they're not quite that big. I'll put my finger up to give you a sense of scale. They are also called the butterfly orchid. They're not endemic to Tasmania, but they're fairly scarce on the ground in Tasmania for a variety of reasons. They're predominantly found along the northwest coast, up around the Circular Head area. The population was found down on, I think it was Cat Island in Macquarie Harbour, and also around Scottsdale area in the wet sclerophyll rainforest area, and there is a small population just behind Swansea in a small wet gully on the east coast of Tasmania. They, as you can see, they're epiphytic, and these are the root systems. They are not parasitic, so they don't take anything away from the tree. They only take all their nutrients from the air, and so predominantly rain. This is on a native prickly box, Bercia, and it was first identified, described by a British botanist by the name of John Linley in 1834. The first type specimen was collected, and the type specimen is his reference specimen, which museums hold as the reference for the species to see if there's any variation between that and subspecies. And that species was collected by Robert Gunn, hence the common name Gunn's tree orchid. It was Linley gave it the name Gunnii australis after Robert Campbell Gunn. Now, Robert Campbell Gunn was originally engaged in Tasmania as a convict superintendent based in Hobart, and then he moved to the northwest coast up in the Circular Head area where he was a district magistrate. And he collected this specimen, as I said, in 1836, and Linley initially called it Gunnia australis, as I mentioned a minute ago. It then got changed, its name to Sacrahillis australis, and now not a lot is known about the life cycle of these orchids. They produce a very fine seed, and I can't see any seed cones. There's quite a few around in little seed captures, and I've been looking. They produce a very fine seed like dust. Now, things have got to line up, as to say, and so they need a mycorrhizal fungi to germinate, and so they're blown on the wind. The fungi's got to turn up. Now, they think that the fungus is actually species specific, like a lot of orchids, and so with that, it then lands, takes off, germinates. And we've got some white cockatoos flying over making a racket. As I said, their population is scattered. This is in a gully that wasn't logged, but it's near a former logging operation and pine trees surrounding it. And that changes the microclimate, so the moisture in the air, which then impacts on these native orchids. But they're a beautiful little orchid, and I hope you like my little chat about them. Here we are with these Gunn's tree orchids. They're a beautiful looking little orchid. I managed to get out the little Olympus TG6 to record them. Not a lot's been, as I mentioned before, not a lot's known about them. Even I don't think they completely know who the pollinators are. But I thought I'd get some nice close-up footage with the lens. And I'll just put my little finger to give you an indicator. Oops. I'll just put my little finger to give you an indicator on how big those flowers are. As you can see, they're not very big, are they? Quite small. You can see that. Look how small they are compared to my little finger. Whoops. I put that behind. That shows how small they are. We've got about 232 different species in Tasmania, and new species are more or less being discovered each year in Tassie. Although orchids are one of the most common families of plants on the planet and fairly widely distributed, but also in some respects, some of the native orchids are poorly understood, their life histories. And who are their pollinators and which pollinators actually rely on them. Okie dokie. Thank you. If you do like this little short video, like it and subscribe and share it with your friends and give me some other suggestions what I might want to talk about. Okay, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Stop recording.